I am a functional medicine health consultant. I started as a healthcare practitioner in internal medicine and pulmonary diseases, and my practice was giving patients pills for ills. And it turned out that I didn't realize the connection because my body was just working all the time. And it turned out that working over 60 hours a week and relying on coffee and sugar and not prioritizing sleep and ignoring everything else except work and this go, go, go mentality caught up to me because it affected my brain, my focus, my energy, my mood as I became depressed, and finally my gut. When that happened, I was having issues with irritable bowel, having to run to the bathroom, having a lot of gas, and I was not eating right. So then I realized that it was an issue where my gut was affected and I had to step back and take care of my own health, pace myself, and not work as much. And through functional medicine, I was able to look at the root cause as to why things are going on. In this situation, stress can have a role in gut health, your mood, and it can really affect your whole body. When you don't sleep, then some of your hormones like cortisol can go up, and that can create inflammation. The idea is inflammation is something that can happen. Not all of it is bad, but over time, when you have this sleep debt built up, and when you have problems with digestion, it affects your brain health, and then you develop a leaky brain. So we call leaky brain, leaky gut. It really can affect many different things. Now, when I was practicing, we were looking at irritable bowel syndrome as something that was in your mind. And we thought people were anxious, and we thought that we were giving people pills for depression and anxiety. But the thing is that irritable bowel is really not in your mind, it's actually in your body, it's in your gut. We realize that things affect your brain and things affect your gut health. So when you have irritable bowel, it affects your brain health. And when you have anxiety, it affects your gut. There's communication between the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve in your body, going from the neck all the way through your entire system, and also the health of the bacteria in your gut. When you don't sleep or you don't eat right, then all your microbes are out of balance. And there's this connection between the brain and the gut that Terry and I talk about all the time. It's the brain gut microbe connection to understand why things happen the way they do. We need to dig deeper and look and see what's creating the inflammation, what's creating the gut disturbances. And hopefully that's something that's resonating with you. If so, then please share about that. Thanks. Go ahead, Terry.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on what you were talking about. When I was a social worker, I dealt with a lot of folks who had IBS issues, and a lot of them were very anxious people. So it really you could see the connection going both ways. They're anxious to begin with, but then the health of the gut often determines how anxious you're going to feel. I remember one client and specifically was drinking a lot of soda. And I brought that to his attention. He was eating a lot of ultra processed food. And at that point, I said, it's not a good idea for you to be doing this. It's just going to create more anxiety, more caffeinated beverages, more sugar is going to disrupt the gut microbiome and affect the inflammation in your body and create a lot of digestive issues for the person, right? It goes hand in hand. And he had a really hard time with wanting to change his ways. I remember him sharing, "Hey Terry, I only had one Mountain Dew today." I'm like, "Okay, that's like 12 teaspoons of sugar, which is a whole day's worth and then some." So, a lot of things we don't realize about the diet is crucial to how we actually feel. When people talk to me about coffee, for example, and they're having a sleep issue or they're having an anxiety issue, I say, "Hey, guess what? That's a chemical stressor. That's putting more stress on your body. It's increasing your cortisol. So if your goal is to sleep better and to lose weight, for example, getting rid of the caffeinated beverages totally can do a lot of good for you. And caffeine, if it's not present, it doesn't have an opportunity and keep antagonizing that central nervous system. That's where a lot of people's stress will affect that vagus nerve because people typically aren't doing a lot of deep belly breathing, which we're trying to instill to stimulate that vagus nerve and calm things down, take the breaks that you need and not be so go, go, go. Schedule in times for deep breathing during the day can be so powerful.
Yeah, so true. Terry, you talk about a lot of different things. You and I have spoken about ways that we can help with our stress management. We can't eliminate stress totally, but there are certain things, and certainly breathing is one of them. We can do deep breathing throughout the day to help us reset. That's one of the things we could do. There's other ways to stimulate the vagus nerve. We talk about vagal tone. When you have good vagal tone, then your digestion improves. When we are stressed, then we can't digest. I know that rhymes, but the thing is that it's the situation where we can do some things to put ourselves in a restful state, rest and digest, so we can digest our food better. We always tell people to take some deep breaths before meals, bless their food, just sit and not be running around when we're eating, so we have the ability to digest our food. Certainly, there's other things that we can do, such as humming, singing, or gargling. These are things that can help us with improving vagal tone. We can stimulate the vagal nerve either externally with our fingers, or they make these devices that you can actually use to stimulate the vagus nerve. They're called vagus nerve stimulators. They're just little tools that you can put behind the ear because that's the origin of the vagus nerve. And that will help to increase vagal tone. The other thing is that if you don't believe in deep breathing, then you can certainly do something where you could pull an imaginary feather out of your hat and you could put it in the air and you can breathe and try to keep that feather in the air for 30 seconds. You'll see that there is some benefits for people who don't necessarily believe in breathing. There is definitely a science behind breathing and a calming effect. If you're in a stressful situation, you can recognize it and step back and focus on something in the room or do something where you're trying to not have these negative thoughts and try to not let that affect you. We have some where we realize we're in a stressful situation, and I think the hard thing is to just understand or to recognize what's going on with our body. If we're able to recognize what's happening with our body, sometimes we can lessen the severity of the stress happening to our body. What are your thoughts, Terry?
As you were talking, I was just thinking of some more tools that I personally have enjoyed using for calming that nervous system down. One of the things that I even did this morning is getting morning sunlight, taking a walk, and earthing all in the same crack. Those three things can be great for reducing stress in the body. And another thing that I typically take is magnesium. There's all different varieties of magnesium, but the magnesium glycinate is one to really help keep you calm throughout the day and also for helping support sleep. I'll add things like lavender tea or chamomile tea. There's even teas made with various adaptogens that they're calling cortisol reducing tea, like ashwagandha, such a wonderful support to help the body so it doesn't produce as much cortisol, keep it more in balance. That's what those adaptogens do. So those kinds of things can be really helpful. The other thing when you were talking, people who have a lot of depressive thoughts, a lot of them have a lot of physical pain in their bodies. There's a huge correlation between thoughts and inflammation in your body. I remember people having fibromyalgia, for example. They have so much body pain, and a lot of times they had some type of emotional traumas. They say that emotions get stuck in the body if they're not processed and creates a lot of pain for folks, pain all over their body. And one of the ladies I remember working with, she had fibromyalgia so bad some days She could not get out of bed. It was so disabling. She was also living with her husband who was really negative and she was really sensitive. So that really took a toll on her psyche and created a lot of body pain from that stress of that relationship. So I think this is an area where we need to be talking about that more too, because relationships affect our stress level. So we need to be very conscientious, like we are with the food that we're putting into our body, about who we're deciding to engage with and for how long. If you notice that person drains you of your energy, then maybe that's somebody that you need to spend less time with, if at all possible, or find ways that you can distance yourself from the person as much as you can. I know sometimes it's really hard if it's a family member, but it's becoming really conscious of that. Have you
Well,
noticed that too with your patients having fibromyalgia and a lot of stress from their relationships or traumatic experiences that they've endured?
yeah, you've hit so many pearls. You were talking about trauma, emotions that are stored, and pain relating to your mood. And plus, you talked about the benefits of magnesium. You also spoke about adaptogens, which are things that can help the body adapt to stressors. Now, here's the other thing that we have to understand that not every adaptogen is right for everybody. So you have to choose which one is going to be working for you. Some people may, for example, have trouble sleeping. Should I take ashwagandha? Should I take lemon balm? Should I take chamomile? The idea is that you can do a trial where you can use this particular item for several weeks and see if there's a benefit. And if that works, okay, you can stick with it. But if that doesn't work, then you try something else. We have to understand that each person is unique and individualized, and we have to find out what works for your body. And the other thing that you mentioned is relationships. I know that you feel and you know that relationships are one of the pillars of health, and that loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day, which is scary, even if you haven't smoked. It can have that impact on your overall health. And obviously, sleep is something that is major that we need to prioritize. You talked about sunlight, but regarding sleep, it's really just getting in a rhythm, going to bed at the same time and waking up at the same time, and not really focusing on, well, I went to bed at 12 and I woke up at 8, therefore I got 8 hours of sleep. That's not how it works. Sometimes it can take you maybe a half hour to fall asleep. And we can say, okay, if I'm going to feel really rested, I need to have 6 or 7 hours of sleep. But I have to at least keep in mind the time it takes to fall asleep. And I have to make sure when I wake up in the morning that I'm able to accomplish what I need to do before I have to go out and go to work or do other types of things. So like I said, you've mentioned many things, all pearls of wisdom. And just to answer your question, yes, I feel that there are people who have chronic illnesses like fibromyalgia or other types of pain. Yes, there are emotional issues, and we need to dig deeper. Sometimes we need to do some trauma work in order to uncover so that you get them out of a particular frozen state because you can actually freeze your energy stores, your storage cells. And sometimes it takes some work to uncover that trauma so that we're able to get our energy cells working more efficiently and we're able to improve our overall energy and our overall mood. So
Absolutely. That's very well said. As I was hearing you talk about this, I was reflecting on different clients that I've had, and I remember some of them having arthritis. And along with that, what came first, the arthritis or depression? Sometimes there's a combination. Is it the depression that's causing the arthritis to be worse? They go hand in hand. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think that pain and emotional issues, some of that are mental, and if you have a positive attitude, I think you can overcome a lot.
Yeah,
Obviously, there's a reason why people have rheumatoid arthritis or other things. And there may be a situation where over time they've eaten foods or they've done certain things to create a level of inflammation. And Sometimes it's hard to reverse that, but I feel that having a positive attitude can certainly affect the quality of living and dealing with and accepting the fact that this is what I have and I'm going to go ahead and do what I have to do or do what I want to do and live my life the best I can.
I totally agree. Every morning I have a gratitude practice. I listen to affirmations. I thank out loud the people I'm grateful for today, all the things. Even in the hard days, it can be, I'm thankful that I have running water. It can be just simple things. I'm thankful that I have an ability to breathe. Being grateful can really be helpful for easing those depressive, anxious thoughts. We focus on our blessings more than what we don't have, that can really change things around for us. I agree with that.
For our audience, we hope that we've shared some knowledge and information that you can use. We're going to run out of time, so we
Mhm.
wanted to at least close the show with something that may be a tool or some important thing that we can take away from today's session or just in general. So, Terry, what is your takeaway, or what is something that the audience can take away from today that they can maybe use in their everyday life?
One of the things they can take away is just recognizing that stress has an effect on the body. And so it's really important to learn strategies to manage your stressors throughout the day and just don't be like, oh, on the weekend, I'll catch up on my sleep. It's not going to work that way at all. So think about what you can do during the day to keep you more on an even keel. Starting your day, maybe with going outside for that walk, getting that sunshine, taking some magnesium a little bit to keep you stable. Instead of having coffee, having some herbal tea, maybe lavender tea. A lot of times people think that they need to jack themselves up with the caffeine, but recognize that's a chemical stressor on the body. And if you're already having troubles with anxiety or sleep, it's not your friend right now. So be aware that all stress is going to impact the body. How about you? What is your takeaway?
I think that you nailed it and talked about how stress affects us in many different ways. It can affect our brain, it can affect our gut health. I think that we need to be aware, connect to our body and connect to our symptoms because symptoms are signals. We need to really tune into that. So one of the things I stress to people is to have a really effective morning routine, getting up at a good time every day, going to bed at a certain time at night, but just having a good morning routine, getting up, drinking water because you're dehydrated overnight, getting that morning sun within a half hour of waking up. What that does, it actually affects the levels of cortisol in your body and turns off the sleepy hormone, which is melatonin. Melatonin and cortisol have a relationship. When one goes up, the other goes down. So that's one way to help with your stress. And doing some breathing throughout the day, taking some deep breaths, maybe for 1 or 2 minutes, making sure that when your hand's on your belly and you breathe in, that your belly goes out and vice versa. That's the proper way to breathe. Doing this throughout the day, maybe 3 to 4 times a day. You can do it as much as every hour, but only for a few minutes. And that can certainly make a tremendous difference in your overall stress. I would like to say that this is our show, Let's Talk Gut Health. And every week we talk about different topics of interest. We invite people to come listen, be a part of the show, whether you want to be an active participant or a listener. We also invite you to share this so that others can benefit from this because we can only grow with your help. We would appreciate you sharing this and letting people know that this is what we do. We encourage people to write in questions so that we can entertain them during the show. And we hope that the information that provided has maybe been helpful to you. If so, and you'd like to reach out to us, then certainly both Terry and I are available, and we would be happy to discuss some more or further details about whatever's happening or whatever's going on. Terry.
Absolutely, yes. You can reach me at Terry Total Health, my website. You can Google that and schedule if you want a self-care session with me. There's no cost to that to get you started on a more strategic way to think about nailing some of these health challenges down. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you next week, hopefully. And let's talk gut health. And next week's topic is all about the gut-brain connection.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week. Bye bye now.